Kopax Chartered Accountants was born from a company called Kopax Material, which is a company I formed while I was in varsity. So I've always been entrepreneurial. I've always been looking for opportunities, and I then put together a product that I designed, an underarm sweat pad, which deals with absorbing sweat during heavy perspiration, which was funded by the IDC. I also cooperated with, or rather worked in collaboration with the CSIR in developing the technology. The only thing that made me then not take it up was that the IDC had required me to then take that role on as a full-time role. And I wasn't ready then because I was still pursuing my studies as a chartered accountant. So this is where I am. Well, how the CASA profession has helped me is that it has given me insight into the intricate details of running an operation, a business operation. It has given me exposure in terms of the policies and procedures that need to be in place in an organization for it to be fully functional. It's given me a lot of financial acumen, and it has also bolstered up my entrepreneurial outlook and acumen. I'm able to have a meaningful engagement that is both financially and also otherwise inclined in terms of then giving value to my clients when I give them advice. And also it has helped me to understand the value of money and the value of ethics more than anything. The profession basically relies a lot on an ethics, and it relies a lot on how one carries themselves across with integrity, and that is something that can even translate into your daily living as well. So it has had a very impactful sort of effect on my life. Well, essentially, as chartered accountants, you are responsible for ensuring that a set of financial statements has integrity and bears credibility. And in doing that and in performing that function, you have to remain as impartial as possible at all times. You have to remain as independent as possible at all times. And so the ethical dilemmas come in where there's what they call, there are different threats to independence in the accounting profession. And one of the biggest one is your self-interest threat, wherein you find yourself having a client that is paying quite a lot, contributing quite a lot in percentage-wise to your revenue, and you'd almost be willing to do anything to keep that client. And so that self-interest threat influences your outlook even before you look at the numbers, and in interacting with your clients, it already creates that rapport that you look at the client's numbers in favor of the client and not necessarily with as much objectivity. And therefore, it's the element of objectivity that really crafts and makes a chartered accountant what they are, because the public basically places a lot of reliance and a lot of value on your report that you sign off as an auditor. And essentially the dilemma then that a lot of chartered accountants are faced with is there's quite a lot of expectation for them to deliver on the side of the client. However, there's an even bigger expectation for third parties to essentially then rely on those particular finances and to basically rely on your objectivity. And so you find yourself having to always act with integrity and with ethics. And in terms of getting over them, it really looks at, as an individual, what is your purpose? Why have you decided to get into the profession of auditing? And if integrity is not at the core of your values, then it's the wrong profession to be in. But if integrity is at the core of your values, you'll essentially be able to easily get over it by signing off papers and signing off reports that will help you sleep at night. Well, the 5 top tips I can give to a newly qualified CA is that firstly, when you qualify, you essentially just come from a period of being trained, a period of being incubated as a chartered accountant, and whoever's been training you, they've been investing a lot of knowledge in you. So you have all this knowledge now, you have all these skills that you've acquired. But essentially, you don't know which area of business to basically, start your career in. Because being a chartered accountant, or rather being a trainee article clerk, is not a career. It is a training program. But it's only after you qualify as a chartered accountant that you then begin your career. And so it is very important that while trainees are going through their training articles, they then start thinking around what career path they want to follow, and be able to then start lobbying to be placed in those fields of expertise that they would one day want to establish their career in. So tip number one would be to say, while you're doing your career, while you're doing your articles and you're in your training, start thinking about your career and start thinking about which areas of expertise you basically want to start your career in. And then secondly, you should always learn the value of budgeting. Unfortunately, with the salaries that articles clerks get, they get forced to then start looking at those skills in terms of how they need to save and how they need to make their rand basically take them much further than they ordinarily would. And so secondly, it would be the skill of budgeting. Thirdly, it would be about you being able to convince the person that's going to be interviewing you for your first job that you do actually know what you're doing, and you would have been able to do that while you were in your articles, because then you would have started thinking about it. So in putting out your CVs, just ensure, as a third tip, just ensure that your CV is as concise and as informative as possible, so that whoever's looks at your CV, remember that is the first part of your interview, and essentially they look at that as you presenting who you are to them. So if your CV is not well structured, you're not able to then pass through that first hurdle. So as a fourth tip, you need to ensure that your CV is well constructed. And as a last tip, you need to ensure that when you get to your first place of employment, you even still then journey towards finding yourself and finding the values, or rather the areas of expertise that you feel that you can really add value in. There's no use being an auditor and yet you want to be in banking. And so if your first job is for you to establish that, you then need to then check if the job that you are doing is really where you want to be, and start moving around and navigating towards the career path that you want to follow.